bio here. Greg has been a NASA Solar System ambassador for, I'm just going to use this, nearly a quarter of a century, about a quarter of a century.
2001, yeah?
What's that?
2001.
Quarter of a century, we'll go with that. Sorry if that makes you feel particularly old.
No.
He's lectured extensively on a wide variety of astronomical topics. His observational work on meteors, comets, and grazing occultations has been published by the International Meteor Organization, the International Occultation Timing Organization, and the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory. He's also an avid meteorite collector. He's published several articles on the significance of organic compounds found in meteorites. He's an enthusiastic, as I said, eclipse chaser, as well as having traveled to over a dozen total solar eclipses, with no doubt many more still to come. I lied when I said it was recent. Tonight he's going to present to us ancient Egyptian astronomy and mythology, exploring how the ancient Egyptians understood the universe and how astronomy became intertwined with their mythology, religion, and culture. So please welcome me in welcoming back Greg Shanos.
All right, thank you very much. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right, great, thank you. All right, so ancient Egyptian mythology and astronomy. Back in 2002, 8 months after 9/11, my wife found a trip to Egypt, which was 10 days, and so we ended up going. And the reason I wrote this back in 2002 and updated it a bit, but the reason I'm mentioning this tonight is because on August 2nd, 2027, there's going to be the best place to be is the center line here on Luxor, Egypt, and it's going to be 6 minutes and 23 seconds, okay? Likelihood is 80% clear skies, and the next eclipse, which will be 6 minutes 23, won't occur until 2114. So we need a time capsule to see that one too, all right? So this is a real big one. So this is an excellent time to visit Egypt, experience a total solar eclipse, see the pyramids of Giza, and also other temples along the Nile, okay? So hopefully I'll inspire everyone to want to go to Egypt after this presentation. So, what I'm going to talk about is various temples visited during our excursion in May 2002. We were there 18 to 27 of May, discuss the mythology of various gods, discuss ancient Egyptian mythology. And this is really amazing because the ancient Egyptians created one of the first human civilizations that continued for 3,000 years. Can you imagine? The United States just celebrates 250th birthday. That's nothing compared to lasting 3,000 years. Okay, so it was an incredible civilization. It disappeared 2,000 years ago, but left behind a lot of stories, monuments, science, mathematics, and a rich artistic tradition that influenced Western civilization. Okay, these are all the places we visited on our trip. Okay, we landed in Memphis. In Cairo, and then saw the Great Pyramids there, the museum, and then flew down to Abu Simbel, and then took a boat back up. And this trip, you'll never believe the price, including airfare, round-trip airfare, 5-star Hilton hotel, 3 meals a day, everything included except for souvenirs was $1,500 a person, $1,500. So it was $150 a day. Now the same trip, we went with Grand Circle Travel, I looked it up at $6,200 for the same trip now. But if you go on an eclipse excursion to this, you'll pay like double that. You'll pay like $12,000 a person, okay? So, but go at any time and see this, but definitely go see Egypt. It was very illuminating. And also, just to warn you, when we arrived, we had military police guarding us. They had machine guns around their chest with bullets like you see in the movies, okay? And they were in the bus, there was one military jeep in front, two on the side, one on the bottom. They're always checking under the bus for bombs. So it was a little disturbing, but oddly enough, by halfway through, we just ignored them. We just had a good time. It was just part of the experience. So don't let that deter you, okay? Okay, let me go back to this. Okay, so chronology. So basically, it's broken down into the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom. But before that, there was the pre-dynastic period and early dynastic. Notice how far back it goes, 5,000 to 3,100 BC. Wow, that's really a long time ago. And within these kingdoms, you have intermediate periods, and then dynasties within that. And then after the late dynastic period, then you had Macedonian and Ptolemaic. This is when the Greeks influenced Egypt, came into Egypt. 332, this was when Alexander the Great first came to Egypt. And I'll talk more about that later. And then the Roman period, 30 BC to 450 AD, the Roman Empire. So the famous Antony and Cleopatra and all that happened right around this time, at the tail end of it. Okay, the Rosetta Stone. The Rosetta Stone is a black asphalt slab and bearing an inscription about a rebellion against the Greek ruler. And this was the key to deciphering the hieroglyphics. No one knew what they meant, okay? And so it's dated to 196 BC, and it was unearthed in 1799 by Napoleon's army. And it's currently in the British Museum of Natural History. The tour guide told us, once we walked into the Museum of Cairo, we had to go through 2 metal detectors, 2 sets. And he said, this is the only thing that's fake in this museum, he said, because the British took this and they want it back, but they're not getting it back. So, but this is the Rosetta Stone. And what you see here is, on the next page, you see 3 inscriptions. If you look carefully, the top one is the Egyptian hieroglyphics. The middle one is language Demotic, which is kind of a cursive script used in late Egyptian history. And on the bottom was ancient Greek. And scholars knew how to read ancient Greek, okay? So then the key was to figure out from the ancient Greek, they figured out that this was the same thing, the same sentences in 3 different languages, okay? So, and then it was discovered that it was indeed an alphabet, see? So I have over here, you can see what's called a cartouche. I'll show you later, that with my name in Egyptian, so G-R, where's the E? E, G, and it's read down. Okay, it's not read across, they're read down. Okay? And these were the 2 men that were instrumental in figuring it out. Thomas Young, he kind of laid the groundwork for it. But this was the person, Champollion, and he was less than 30 years old when he figured this. He was in his upper 20s. And he realized that this was also symbolic meaning and a spoken language. And so he figured out what all this meant. Okay, so he figured out that this was indeed an alphabet, see, the hieroglyphics. And see, you can see here, this is hieroglyphics, here's that demonic language, and then here's ancient Greek. So there's a lot of ancient Greek, which was good, but there wasn't as many hieroglyphics up here. But he was able to break the code. Okay, mummification. This is a fascinating process, okay? Everyone is fascinated by the Egyptian mummies, okay? So from start to finish, it took 70 days to embalm a body, okay? Now, the Egyptians really believed in an afterlife. The life here is only temporary. It's the afterlife, after you die, that is the permanent life, okay? And so you had to be prepared for the passage into the afterlife. And here's King Tut's mummy here. And we'll talk about King Tut later. But and what was neat is the mummification process. The higher ranking you are, the better oils they use, the cloth and all that, and your mummy didn't decay very well. And if you were on the lower end of the spectrum, they used the cheapest materials, okay? So it was kind of, I found that kind of interesting. Not everybody was, you know, mummified equally. And then here's Seti the First. They said, look how, you can actually see how his face looked like. Isn't that amazing? Look at that preservation. I mean, this is going on 5,000 years now. How well preserved it is, okay? So it consisted of many steps. First it was washed and purified. They removed the inner organs. A slit was cut to remove the intestines, liver, and stomach. They used sodium carbonate, okay, which served to dry the organs and not discourage bacteria from decaying the tissues. And the organs were wrapped using linen and placed in these canoptic jars, okay? So the lids of the jars were encrusted with a protecting animal here. So you had these here. Remember this name, Ramses II, this mummy. I'm going to talk a lot more about him in a bit, but remember Ramses II, okay? Now after they removed the internal organs, they removed the brain through the nose using long hooks, and they didn't know what the brain did, so they threw it out. So you went to the afterlife brainless. Seriously, because, you know, and they left the heart inside the body, because the heart was considered the center of consciousness. And when you think about it, what happens when you see somebody running at you with a knife ready to kill you, right? Your heart starts beating and you run, right? If you see someone very attractive, what happens? Your heart starts beating, right? Because you're attracted to that person. So your heart kind of reflected your emotions. So they thought that was the center of consciousness. See? Kind of makes sense when you think about it. If you don't know what the brain did, you would think, you know, the way your heart reacts to the emotions and the stimulus around you, that's the center of consciousness, okay? So then the body was placed in a table and then filled with natron, here sodium carbonate, and then after cleansing the body was rubbed with unguents and oils and stuff, and then it was bandaged, and then they put a lot of wrappings, and then they put gold and adorned the mummy with gold and everything. So it was really, and it took 70 days, okay? It took exactly 70 days, a little over 2 months. Okay, now, what you see, you always see this, right? You see the head of an animal and the body of a human. This is called theocephaly, and it's from the Greek. Theos means Greek, and kephali means head. So this literally means Godhead, okay? And what happened is the ancient Egyptians depicted the gods with human bodies and animal heads, okay? And what it did is it symbolized the traits, powers, and personalities of their deities. So it combined the intellect of a human with the instinctual attributes of animals, okay? So notice, Anubis, okay, is the jackal-headed god, the dog, okay? And the reason Anubis was chosen was because these jackals were scavengers, and they were prowling the tombs where they were mummifying the bodies, and so they could smell rotting flesh, so they were attracted to it. So the Egyptians saw these wild jackals there, so why not make that the god of embalming and death, right? So the jackal, the dog, is the god of embalming. Horus is the falcon-headed god because you see the falcon flying overhead, right? So its ability to soar in the sky and protects Egypt, right? And you see every time you see a osprey, you see a lot of ospreys on poles. Every time I see it, my wife sees an osprey, she goes, Horus. All right, so that's Horus. So next time you see an osprey, okay, you think Horus, all right? That's the falcon-headed god. And here he is here. That's Horus. Now this was actually inside, I believe it was the temple of the queens, which we'll see later. This is a cartouche. Okay, this is called a cartouche. See, and this is read down. So this is an alphabet here. Each of these means something, and Egyptologists are now able to read it. And notice another thing too is the way they're standing. They're in profile like this, right? 1 foot forward, and the shoulders are kind of turned outward, and they're like looking at you. See, and then the next relief on the wall will look like this. So it looks like they're moving, like in a film strip. See, so this kind of gives, doesn't it kind of give motion? The idea of motion. So that's why they're like that. And Sekhmet, and this is a lioness warrior, okay, goddess and protector of the kingdom, okay, so this is the lioness. All right, so do you understand what they did? They took the personality, the instinctual attribute of the animal and added it to a human. And, Horus can fly, and Lugus, is there is a scavenger, so he's with death. So see, they equate the animal with a certain, trait. So it's kind of neat. Okay, so talk about the basic gods. So this is Osiris. Okay, so Osiris is like Jupiter to the Greek. Jupiter to the Romans, or Zeus to the Greeks. Okay, a lot of people know the basic Roman and Greek gods, but no one knows the Egyptian gods, which came much earlier and actually influenced a lot of the Greek and Roman myths that came afterwards. So this is Osiris here, okay, and he's associated with death, the afterlife, resurrection, and agriculture. And all pharaohs must answer to Osiris on Judgment Day, and we're going to talk about Judgment Day. That's really cool. Okay, Isis is his wife, okay, and she's a very important figure. She's associated with magic, funeral rites, giver of life, healer, and protector of kings. And see this thing here? This is called the key of life, an ankh. And only a god can hold an ankh. So when you see Egyptian hieroglyphs and they're holding an ankh, you know that's a god, okay? So if there's a human head and they're not holding an ankh, that's a human, a pharaoh or a noble or something like that. See, so now we're learning some basics of Egyptology, the way they thought. And notice I have the key here as a template. That's not by accident. See, so, and then this is a sun disk. So the sun was named Ra, okay? And then another interesting, the cow-headed goddess is named Hathor, okay? And Hathor is, a lot of times you can't tell who, they look the same many times, so you just have to look at the cartouche and see which goddess it is. But Hathor is the goddess of love, joy, music, dance, and beauty. She is the goddess you want to party with in college. Okay. She is the party goddess, right? And she's actually goddess for women, fertility, childbirth, drunkenness. She's the fun goddess, okay? And she actually is the wife of Horus, the falcon-headed god, okay? So and they have a child, Horus Jr. That wasn't very creative. That's what they call it. All right. So the gods to remember now are Osiris, wife is Isis, and son is Horus. Okay, so Osiris, Isis, Horus. And then Horus's wife is Hathor, and the son is Horus Jr. See, there's always a trilogy, just like Father, Son, Holy Ghost, see? There's always a trilogy. So a lot of the Christians copied a lot from Egyptian culture. Okay. Next, I love this. This is in the Temple of Edfu. Here's Horus. Isn't that beautiful? And look at back there. Now, this is a crown for Upper Egypt. I'll talk more about that in a bit. But Horus is the creator god, the falcon that flew from the beginning of time, and depicted as hawks or hawk-headed men. Okay, and the pharaoh is considered to be the living Horus. Okay, and like I said, Horus is the son of Isis and Osiris, husband of Hathor. Okay, and the pharaohs or the kings were seen as gods to the normal people. Okay, so some miscellaneous gods. Ra is the sun god, that's the supreme, okay? And his wife is Nut, okay? Khonsu is the moon god, all right? Habi's the god of the night. Thoth is the god of writing and wisdom. He's an ibis-headed god, and we'll talk more about him later. This is a cool one. Sobek, he's the crocodile god. Sekhmet is the lioness god, okay? Tauret is female hippopotamus, childbirth. Set is the male hippopotamus, brother of Osiris. And then Benu bird is the deity of the sun, creation, and rebirth. Where have you heard Benu before? Huh?
Space mission.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm glad someone remembered. I gave a talk on Osiris Rex and Hayabusa 2 missions, sample return missions to asteroid Bennu and asteroid Hayabusa. Yeah, exactly. Very good, Jeremy. Yeah, so, and what was interesting too, I remember while researching that lecture, NASA had a contest to name that asteroid because they had this huge number. It was very cumbersome. So a 9-year-old kid named it Bennu after knowing about Egyptian culture. How did a 9-year-old know that? I'm impressed, but that's what happened. So, yep, so the Bennu bird. Okay, now this is one of my favorite goddesses, Bastet. Okay, how many people here own a cat? Oh, quite a few. Okay, you have a Bastet in your home. Okay, now Bastet, you laugh, you have a cat goddess in your house. All right, this is the cat goddess of Egypt. It was worshipped as early as 2890. Okay, and Bastet is the daughter of the sun god Ra, sister of Sekhmet. This is Sekhmet. This is the lioness warrior. See, she has the sun disk here. And remember, only the female lion hunts. The males don't hunt in the pride. Okay, and then also the wife of. But then cats. The reason cats were worshipped was because cats guarded the granaries, keeping them relatively free of vermin, which threatened the food supply. Anyone caught harming or killing a cat was punished by death. That's how much they loved cats, okay? Cats were very important, and they served to protect the house from rats and snakes. I mean, think about it. We live in Florida. How many times have you seen a cockroach in your house? How many times have you seen a little gecko get in, right? My cats go crazy. They're sitting with us in bed, and all of a sudden they'll jump up, and there's a little gecko in the next room, and they're attacking it, so I got to save it with a cup and take it outside. But see, they're fierce warriors, okay? And she's also has like two sides. She's docile, but then she can be aggressive to her enemies, okay? And whenever you see Bastet, you always see her as a cat, like this. And then see the Ankh, it's a god, okay? You see the key of life, it's a god. And they even mummified the animals. A mummified cat, they have mummified crocodiles, they have mummified hawks. Isn't that cool? So they mummified the cat. And these are my two best bets. This is Sky and this is Jet. So I also own a Skyjet. But it's not what you think. I got these two from Cat Depot, which if you ever want to get a cat, it's the best place ever to get a cat. And so this is Sky and Jet. These are my two best bets. She's female and he's male. They're bonded pair. And so, but that's the cat goddess Bastet. Okay, the scarab beetle was also kind of really, they made a lot of jewelry with the scarab beetle and wore like, jewelry and necklaces with that. And the reason they liked this was because the scarab beetle rolled its dung into pellets and it laid its eggs there. And then this symbolized resurrection and immortality because out of this dung, they saw new life coming out, see? And then as it moved the dung, this was like the sun moving through the sky. Isn't that cool? And then the projections here were seen as like the rays of the sun. So that's kind of interesting, the scarab beetle. Okay, so this is a great story. Isis, Osiris, Horus, and Set. Okay, so these dominate ancient Egyptian culture. I'll read this. This is like a Shakespearean drama. The god Osiris is murdered and dismembered by his brother Set. Okay? Set spreads Osiris's remains all over Egypt. Isis, the wife, searches for the fragments, collects them together, and with her magical powers brings Osiris back to life. They then conceive the god Horus. Horus is the falcon-headed god. Okay, Osiris becomes god of the underworld and judges the dead, who must answer to him for their deeds on earth. Meanwhile, Isis gives birth to Horus and protects the young god. Later, Horus is grown. He avenges his father's death by defeating but not killing Set. Set during battle removes one of Horus's eyes, but it grows back. Now, at the temple of Edfu, we have this, and that is telling that story. Here's Isis. Notice Theon, she's a god, okay? Here's Osiris, okay? Here's Horus. Now see this crown here, these two crowns? This means you're the crown of Lower Egypt, and that means you're the crown of Upper Egypt. And this is Set, the hippopotamus. Okay, so Set killed his brother Osiris, dismembered him, spread him all over Egypt, and then Isis picked up all the pieces, and then conceived Horus, okay, and then Horus avenged his father's death. And notice the rope here. So the moral of the story here is that evil cannot be completely defeated. It can only be contained. So Horus here is containing evil Set, okay, and trying to keep him under control. Isn't that beautiful? And think of stories in the Bible where Cain and Abel kill the brother. One brother kills another, all right? So there's a lot of stories like that. And then see how this is all chiseled out here, whereas this is left intact? This was actually chiseled by the early Christians. Remember, it went to, what was it, 45 AD? So the early Christians came, and to destroy the power of these pagan gods, they chiseled out the face, they chiseled out the arms, and they chiseled out the legs. But the most important thing is to chisel out the face. Okay, so if they didn't have enough time to do the arms and the legs, the face was big. See, so notice the face of Isis here, Horus here, Osiris, it's all, been chiseled out. Isn't that unfortunate? And you see a lot of this chiseling in a lot of the tombs. All right, so that was done intentionally by the early Christians, to defeat the power of these gods. Okay, the eye of Horus. Remember, Horus lost his eye when he battled Set. Okay, and but it grew back. And then you see this. Remember the eye? If you remember, what was it? The Eye in the Sky album by Alan Parsons Project. This was the cover. Remember? So, and this actually, you don't see too many prescriptions these days, but it was an RX, Remember on the upper left, there was like an RX? That's what it is. It came from the Eye of Horus. Isn't that neat? And I'm a retired pharmacist, so I saw that all the time, every day. But that's really cool, see? So it's here, and here, and then like that, and then they put an X there. So that's the Eye of Horus, okay? And it's used as an amulet. A lot of women had, jewelry made out of this. So you've seen this before, right? I think you see this in popular culture. Now you know what it is. It's the Eye of Horus that was removed defeating Set to avenge his father Osiris's death. See? Okay, so talk now about the pyramid building. So the first ever pyramid built, okay, was Saqqara right here, which is right near the Giza pyramids. And these were the first tombs, and they were just bunkers. They called them mastabas. And so what they did is they were just basically mud brick, but then they took one large bunker, put a slightly smaller bunker on top of that, a slightly smaller one above that, etc. And what do you get? A pyramid. So you don't need aliens coming from across the galaxy to teach us how to build pyramids, like you see in some of those crazy TV shows, So this is how the whole idea of a pyramid started. You just take one bunker, one smaller one, another smaller one, and before you know it, you have a pyramid. And this was 2630 BC. Notice how long ago that was, my God. This was for the pharaoh Dozier, okay? And this was the first ones made. And this shows you the height. And Imhotep was the genius that came up with this, credited the inventor building the first pyramids. And he was also a man of many talents. He was an architect, he was also physician, sculptor, scribe, and astronomer too. So he was, and it was funny, I saw the movie recently, The Mummy, with Brandon Fraser, and the mummy was Imhotep. And I'm like, he was a good guy. They made him evil. He was a good guy. I remember the name because he's the one that built the Saqqara pyramid. Okay. Pyramids of Giza. Okay, these are the real big ones, okay? All these pictures were taken by my wife with, in 2002, digital really wasn't a thing. People were still using film. I think maybe 4 megapixels, maybe 6 megapixel camera, that was $5,000. So nobody bought it. Film still did a better job. So this was 200 ASA film with a Nikon F5 camera. So the first one is Cheops here, and this was built during this time. And the 4 sides of the pyramids are oriented to the compass, north, south, east, and west. So I thought that was kind of cool. And they found this boat here that was buried right alongside it. And Maria said, look at the people there. It gives you a sense of scale. Look at that. How huge this was. And I remember that the tour guide said, take a piece of paper and try sliding it between the stones of that pyramid. And I tried it. You couldn't. You wiped out all the sand. You couldn't. It was solid. I mean, there was no space in between there. It was just an incredible thing. And they told us we could go inside and see it, but they said it's very unimpressive, kind of claustrophobic. This was the better thing to see the boat, so we went and saw the boat instead. So I didn't go into this pyramid, unfortunately. But this is a beautiful boat. And also, what's interesting too is the pyramids are built on the west side of the Nile. Why? I heard something.
Sunrise,
The west side, yeah.
irrigation, flooding.
Could be. Why would you build the tombs on the west side of the Nile? Huh? Death, sunset. The sun dies in the west and is born in the East every day, right? So all the cities, the towns were built on the east side of the Nile, and all the tombs are always on the west side of the Nile. See, it makes sense. And the boat connected you during death. The passage was from the east to the west. See, they took you on this boat. Okay. So, so this one, Khafre, this was the next large pyramid, and you know what really is upsetting? See this this veneer over here? This limestone veneer covered all these pyramids, but people used them over the centuries to build buildings. So they took all this stuff, all these pyramids were completely covered with this beautiful limestone veneer. Can you believe that? How could you deface such a beautiful, yeah, but they did through the centuries. And that's all that remains on Khafre pyramid. And what was interesting too is the wheel had not yet been invented when these great pyramids were built. Okay? That's why everyone's saying aliens. Okay? But, and notice, each stone on average weighed 2.5 tons, 5,500 pounds. Okay? And some stones were even larger. Okay? The ones in the base were actually larger. All right? And this was the basic theory of the gradient was 20% and how they pushed up the stones. Isn't that amazing? It's just an incredible feat. I mean, this is one of the 7 wonders of the world, these pyramids. And then this is the smaller one of the 3, Menkaure, okay? And so what happened is 100,000 people worked for 3 months of the year. This was the time of the Nile's annual flood, which made it impossible to farm. So if they weren't farming, they were building pyramids. And for that, they were providing food, clothing, and all the necessities of life. So, you know, it was kind of they didn't have money at this time. Money didn't come around till the Romans, where they had coins. Yeah, so everything was a barter system, okay? So, and labor was a big bartering chip that you worked for, you couldn't, you know, grow food and trade that, so you worked on the pyramid, and that was, your labor was the trade. Okay, and here's the 3 pyramids. Oh, and Jonathan, I like what you did on the Facebook page. I had the 3 pyramids with the solar eclipse. Yeah. But AI got it wrong because they're not this close. See, one of them is much further away. They're not, you know, 2 of them are close, but the other one's much further. So, so the shape of the pyramids represented the sun's rays, also the god Ra, reminiscent of Orion's belt. This has been disproven because Orion's belt, the stars are kind of evenly spaced. Here they're not evenly spaced. And on a more superficial level, it symbolizes the importance of the pharaohs, their control over Egypt, and power and greatness of the civilization. Notice, you know, you look at the White House today, it looks like an impressive building. It just shows the power of the government, you know, the pharaoh. You look at the medieval churches in Spain and in Italy and in the Vatican, you know, they're huge, you know. That shows the power of God and the church and of the priest. See? So that's one, you know, think of it, you're you know, a tribe, and you come upon it and you see this. And you're going to be in awe. This is like seeing a spaceship. It's like, wow, you know, so. Okay, so the Sphinx is really cool. So the Sphinx is a lion's body with human facial features. The Sphinx represents the power of an animal with the wisdom of a pharaoh. Kind of the same thing, you know, the centaur in Greek mythology. You have a human, and then the back is a horse, right? And that represents that man is still half savage, intellect here and savage in the back. See, so it's kind of interesting. It's kind of the same idea. And this was carved out of a natural outcropping of rock. Okay, and it had a nose here and a beard. The beard is in the museums. And there was a myth that's been disproven. They said that Napoleon's men were using the nose as target practice, but I looked up recently to say Napoleon really admired the Egyptian culture. He wouldn't have his men just shoot at it. So, and then this called the Nemes, N-E-N-E-S. This is what the pharaoh wore. This was like his headdress. Okay, so this is the head of the pharaoh or the king. Okay, Abu Simbel. So now we went from Cairo, we flew down to Abu Simbel, and then we came upward. Oh, and let me tell you this story before I forget. When we were docked at one of these, areas, there was, the locals had these tubes, and they had a rug in it that they made. And they put a price in there, like most were around $25. It was cheap. And so they threw it up in the boat. And if you liked the rug, you kept it, put 20 bucks, and then threw the tube back, right? And said if you didn't want it, you just threw the whole tube back with the rug. And one of the Egyptians said, American? And we said, yeah. And he goes, Jerry. Remember the Jerry Springer show? Remember that's what they used to do, Jerry. And I was grabbing my camcorder, and then we started saying back, Jerry. So that's what they think of as the Jerry Springer show. That's what they think of American culture. I'm serious, that was the funniest thing. Oh God, that was hysterical. So Abu Simbel is for the Pharaoh Ramses II, okay, who are said to remember. He ruled for 67 years. Wow, can you imagine that? 67 years, the Middle Kingdom, okay, 13th century BC. And this is all dedicated to him. And what's cool is, and this is inside, and notice it's all brightly colored. You can see vultures up there. The sun bleached all of this. All this at the time it was built was very brightly colored. And see, when you see a statue like this, you're dead. Okay? When you see something like this, you're alive, because you're walking, see? But if you're like this, you're dead. So now you know that these pharaohs are dead. And there's a beard, so the beard is curved. See how the beard's curved a little bit there? If you're living, the beard would be straight. See, so there's a lot of logic going through this. And one other thing too, the civilization lasted thousands of years. They never changed anything. All the hieroglyphics from the very beginning to the very end were exactly the same. Think of it, if they changed it, then all of a sudden it would all be nonsense, right? The Rosetta Stone wouldn't work at a certain point. But the Rosetta Stone came 196 BC. It was a lot later than 3000 BC when the pyramids were built. See, but the language remained the same. They never changed it, which was a good thing for us. Okay. But notice the logic that runs through it. So all these are deceased, okay? And here's Ramses. This fell because of an earthquake. And what was other really amazing thing, and then there's a small temple next to it. This was for Ramses' favorite wife, Nefertiti. And look at that, here's for scale. Here's a male, probably what, 5.5, 6 feet tops, right? Probably shorter, okay? 5.5. Look at that. Look at the size of that thing. See, and then these are all cartouches right here. Okay. And one thing that was cool about this was they built a dam, a Swan High Dam back in the 60s, and this would have flooded, okay? So what they did is they labeled everything, cut it, and reassembled it on higher ground. Isn't that amazing? So this temple, so if the ancient Egyptians were resurrected now, they wouldn't recognize this temple where it is now because it would be underwater. You know, isn't that amazing? So all of this was cut and labeled and then put on higher ground because the dam was built. That's amazing. And then Temple of Philly, the same thing happened. It took 10 years. Every stone was labeled and removed and reassembled on higher ground. Okay, so Temple of Philly is, this was Roman emperors, okay, 380 to 2. All of these here are much later, during the Greco-Roman, when the Greeks and Romans came to Egypt, okay? And this temple is dedicated to Isis, wife of Osiris, and mother of Horus, okay? And notice, see these columns? What kind of Greek column does that remind you of? Remember your 3 Greek columns? Doric, Corinthian, and what's the third one? Ionic, Doric, Corinthian. Yeah, these are the Corinthian. See, so the Egyptians didn't think this way, okay? They would never build, they never would think to build this. This came much later during the Greek and Roman times, okay? So this is a beautiful temple. Look at all those hieroglyphics there. That's all Isis, different stories. That's beautiful. And then Komombo Temple. This is higher up here. This is dedicated. This was Greco-Roman period too. This was dedicated to the Sobek, the crocodile god, and Horus, the falcon-headed god. Okay, and Sobek is kind of associated with Set. He's kind of evil, and the reason they picked the crocodiles was, look how well preserved that is. Isn't that beautiful? And then here, see, god of Lower and Upper Egypt. This is Lower Egypt. That crowns Upper Egypt. That's Horus, the falcon-headed god. He's a god because he's holding an ankh, right? And then here's Sobek, the crocodile-headed god, and he's holding an ankh, so he's a god too. And they have the left foot out, right? Because the heart is shifted slightly to the left. And military left, right, left. They never say right, left, right? So it's always left, right. And then these are cartouches here describing what's going on. See, isn't that cool? So there's Horus and Sobek. And the reason they picked the crocodile for Komombo Temple is because there were naturally a lot of crocodiles in this area. So they figured if they would appease by making the crocodile a god, it wouldn't harm them and attack them. So there's a logic there, you know what I mean? There's a lot of crocodiles, so we make it a god, it won't hurt us, it'll protect us, see? And they had captive crocodiles were kept in the temple, and they mummified them. They mummified the animals too, so. And then here's the temple of Edfu. Okay, here's Horus. He's one of my favorite gods. I love Horus. So between the Swan and Luxor, so right here, all right, here's Edfu Temple. Okay, temple is dedicated to the god Horus. Okay, built over 180 years. Isn't that amazing? It took 180 years to build this temple, and its impressive feature carvings and many were defaced by the Christians. Remember you saw the Temple of Edfu. Remember I saw the story how Horus is defeating Set on top of Set. That was defaced by the Christians. And something that really blew my mind, I remember this. If you go to Busch Gardens, this is the false Horus. That is the real Horus. Beware of false prophets. This is crazy. I mean, look what a cheesy, crappy reproduction. This is the actual reproduction. This is the actual. Why don't they do? And even this is crappy. Look at that compared to. This is what it should look like. I mean, come on, people. Make it look authentic, right? I mean, look what a crappy horse. So I remember this when we were in Edfu, and I told my wife, I go, oh my God, they have a reproduction of that at Busch Gardens. And I said, and a month after we came back, I was wearing the same outfit. I couldn't find my name there. and I took a picture of me sitting next to it. So I thought that was kind of funny. Yeah?
Maybe the Egyptians copyrighted it.
Yeah, yeah. But hey, if anybody has any questions, just go ahead. But I like this, you know, the false Horus. I mean, come on, make a nice reproduction for God's sakes. Okay, Karnak Temple. So Karnak and Luxor Temple are. This was built over 2,000 years. This was, and it covered over 30 different pharaohs, okay? And this was basically the equivalent, Karnak and Luxor Temple are the equivalent of the Vatican today. It was a big religious city, okay? And it covered 200 acres, and it was just a lot. And also, the normal people were not allowed in these temples. The priests and the pharaoh came out to the entranceway and performed all the rituals and prayers, and everyone was outside. All right. So that was, and look at all the different pharaohs that were here. Okay. And here's Luxor Temple, and Luxor, this is where the eclipse is going to go through, right here. All right. So you just go to, and then they had this needle up here. And this is supposed to be a ray of the sun, okay? And so on the east bank of the Nile lies the Luxor Temple, dedicated to Amun-Ra. Ra is the sun, his wife Moon, and his son Kansu, which is the god of the moon. Okay, and then these were actually connected at one point, and built largely for Amor, and then I hope that the third and Ramses II. Now, talk about Ramses. Ramses II, he ruled 67 years. He fathered between 100 to 120 children. They had 48 to 50 sons and 40 to 53 daughters. It was written on his cartouche. That's what that's what our guide said. He had over 200 wives and concubines, including Nefertiti. And the modern condom is actually named in his honor. I looked it up online. The person that came up with it in 1920, Egyptology was big because Howard Carter discovered King Tut's tomb in 1922. I'll get to that in a bit. So people were interested in Egyptology. So since Ramses fathered 200 kids, all right, so that's why you name a condom after him. You don't want to father 200 kids. All right.
Worn out.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't one woman either, you know. But still, it's like you have to have many jobs to provide for them. But yeah, so that's just amazing. Okay, so Dendera Temple. So Dendera Temple is right here, and this is dedicated to the cow-headed goddess Hathor. And remember Hathor, the goddess of love, joy, music, and fun, the one you want to party with in college. Okay, this is and who's the husband of Hathor? Remember? Horus. Very good. And what's his son's name? Horus Jr. Now, very creative. All right. So yep. So and then here you see this is a beautiful thing here. See god of Lower and Upper Egypt. There's this is Hathor now. This is the sun, god Ra, and then these are the horns of the cow. And then she's giving Alexander the Great holy milk. And then when you see this, that means you're a child. I guess like sucking your thumb, like a baby. See, so that means you're a child. So this is, and then Alexander the Great is holding an ankh here. There's a god there, okay? And when Alexander the Great came in like 332 BC, he was welcomed by the Egyptians because he helped free them from the Persians that they were fighting all the time and they couldn't get a handle on it. So he got rid of the Persians, and so they made him a pharaoh. He declared himself pharaoh, and he was really impressed with everything. So he never changed the gods or anything and brought like the Greek gods down to them. He just went along with everything. And see, they're very smart. Alexander the Great did that to a lot of civilizations. He didn't change things a lot. All right. right? So that was kind of neat. So this is Dendera Temple, and also Dendera Temple has something else that's really cool. Okay, I'll get to that in a bit. Okay, Temple of the Kings. So later on, 18th dynasty, they abandoned building big tombs, okay, at the pyramids, because they were all looted. So they tried to hide the tombs, okay? So most of the tombs were cut into limestone with similar pattern, 3 corridors, an antechamber, and sunken sarcophagus chamber, okay? And here I am outside of King Tut's tomb. They wouldn't let us in, but his mummy is still in there. It's in bad shape, and so they left it. Now, here's King Tut's treasures. Now, a little history about King Tut. He assumed the throne at age 9 and died at age 18 to 19. Some say 18, some say 19, okay? He served as Pharaoh of Upper Lower Egypt, okay, during this time period. He had poor health. His mummy showed a club foot, and they had walking canes in his tomb. Okay, cause of death is unknown, but they found DNA evidence showed he had malaria, and there was a broken leg, and they think, and there was a fracture in the skull, and they thought maybe he was killed, but they later found out that that just happened due to collapse over time of the skull. So it wasn't an intentional thing. So Ramses the Sixth tomb was on top of his and completely buried the tomb of King Tut. All right. So a British archaeologist, Howard Carter, searched for 7 years, from 1915, to find it. Then on November 4th, 22, workmen found the first step hidden under ancient debris, which led to the burial chamber. So think about it. King Tut was a minor king. He died at age 18. He did nothing to be remembered for. Ramses II ruled for 67 years. He was a major king. All his tombs have been raided. All they found were just worthless clay broken jars, okay? Now this is what they found in King Tut's tomb. Over 5,000 priceless artifacts for a minor king. Imagine what Seti had, and King Tut and Tutmosis and Ramses II. Huh? So this is amazing. That's why this is the only tomb out of thousands of tombs, tens of thousands of tombs that they found. So it's the only one found intact and never looted. Isn't that amazing? It just shows you they did loot all this stuff. Solid gold burial mass, weighed 22.5 pounds. We saw this in the Cairo Museum. It was behind glass. You got all cool, like you see in the movies, lasers go back and forth. It was like amazing. And there's the back. You really see the back of this. And Tutankhamun's, and then here's his throne. He had a wife, and he had 2 kids, and the 2 kids were buried with him too. And look at that, it's all gold. Isn't that beautiful? And here's the sarcophagus, they brought that in. And this is what Howard Carter first saw when he showed a flashlight in there. It went back and blinded him because all this gold just came back at him. So it was amazing. And what's cool here is the mummified is in a climate-controlled vacuum sealed glass chamber. But Tutankhamun's winged scarab, see that, the scarab beetle, is made from Libyan desert glass, and his dagger here is forged from an iron meteorite. And I have here, being a meteorite collector, I have, this is Libyan desert glass here. You can have a look. And then this is an iron meteorite, the same class, a fine octahedrite, that this dagger was made from. They actually found the meteorite, and there's only like 1 pound of it, 1,000 grams of it, so there's not much left, so it's not available for sale. But this one is called Gibeah. This one, there's tons of it in Namibia, so that one you can get. But these 2 things in their raw form, this is what was used by the ancient Egyptians for the pharaoh to make the Libyan desert glass, which is translucent right there. That's Libyan desert glass.
Is that from a lightning strike?
Yeah, no, not lightning strike. It's believed to be from a meteor that came down and like exploded and melted the sand, because they see little traces of iron, nickel in there. Okay, so it's believed to be more from a meteorite strike, and it happened 29 million years ago. They dated it, so yeah. So this is, it's not super rare, but you can get this on eBay and the meteorites on eBay. But that's kind of neat. But that's just a small